Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chapter 15, Population and Urbanization. We want to talk about the sociological aspects involving in population and not socialization, but urbanization, living in the urban areas, city areas, and rural areas. At first, again, we have some question for deeper thinking. How many people are currently alive? Do you know that there is some formal minute by minute, second by second, that you can find in the internet? It is, I think it is called World Population Clock. We can check the site, World Population Clock, and find the changes all around the world, in the general population all around the world, and sometimes in specific countries like America also. Death and birth and the balance between and the total population, total amount of population in the world. Why do some people move to the city and others to the country? What are the sociological aspects to choose that where do you want to live in rural areas or in urban areas? How fast is the population growing? As you know, in balance between the resources, natural resources, and money, and some facilities, some infrastructures needed for cities, it's very important that the speed of the population growth and do urban dwellers have a better life than rural dwellers. And we have some topic here: demography, the study of population. It's a science, very important science, very important statistical science also. Population growth in global context all around the world, and brief glimpse at international migration theories, theories about why we migrate to other parts of the world. Urbanization in global perspectives is very important as the future leaders and managers of industry, companies, corporations, and sometimes, why not, as the future leaders and managers of international business marketing, you should have very, very good and analytical and deep interpretation and analysis about the changes in population, because marketing is directly related to growth in population in different countries. Perspectives on urbanization and the growth of cities. Also, inside each countries of the world, also each state, for example, of the United States, you should know the growth of city and what are the perspectives about this growth and problems in global cities all around the world, especially in um, metropolises and metropolitan and giant cities and great cities and big cities, and urban problems in the United States, and finally rural community issues in the United States, which is very, very important issue for these days. Again, we have 8 questions in the general topic of sociology and everyday life. In each chapter, we have a specific second title related to the discussions in that chapter. In this chapter, we are talking about the population. So our second title is the immigration debate. The first sentence that you should think about it and you predict the answer, is it true or false, is an unauthorized immigrant in the United States entered the country illegally. All unauthorized immigrants in the United States enter the country illegally. They are unauthorized, they are illegally. Is it relative logical, relative together or not? At first we think that yes, when you are an unauthorized immigrant, you should be illegally. Why? Because if you have entered this country by legal permissions, it is not unauthorized, it is authorized. And I don't know, how do you think about it? But there is a very simple mathematical logic behind this sentence. But finally, sorry, it is false. We will discuss about it in the future parts of our discussion. That how can you be an authorized immigrant, but at the same time, you can be legal, not illegal. Second sentence. Most people migrate to another country because of push factors that make them unhappy in their country of origin, such as poor economic conditions, political unrest, or war. Most people migrate to another country because of push factors that make them unhappy in their country of origin, such as poor economic conditions, political unrest, or war. Is it true or not? The major concentration of this sentence is about the push factors. Is it true that a large portion that most people migrate to country even for their push factors in their country of origin or not? Sometimes the country that you are immigrant and you are migrating to that country is so attractive for you. It is not related to your country of origin. How do you think? Most people go to another country because of the push factors, like, for example, poor economic situation or political unrest or war and other things, as you see, for example, now in Syria in these days, in these years, these previous years. For example, a lot of people, Syrian citizens, people go to the other countries. Why? Because of war, because of economic condition and other parts. How do you think about the general portion? Also, again, it is false. It is not true because the attractiveness of the country, second country, target country that you are migrating to that country is very important for a lot of people. It is the future of their life. It is the dream of the future of their life. Third question, third sentence. US immigrants are just as likely to have college degrees as our native-born American. Is it true or not? US immigrants are just as likely to have college degrees as our native-born Americans. For example, immigrants from other countries come to America. At the level of college, not university, not higher school, not graduate and postgraduate education, complementary education, no. We are talking about college, 2 years degree, 2 years course that prepare you even for entering another studying course like bachelor degree or entering the job market, the work market. This is college, as you know better than me. Is it the same and equal chance for immigrants and native-born American or not? For example, sometimes we think that, no, it is more chance for native-born American. How do you think? Because you are student of the bachelor degree at least. It is true, yes. Good chance for everybody who lives in America to go to university, to go to college at the same level of chance. 4, immigrants increase unemployment and lower wages among native workers. A lot of people are coming here to the other countries. And some people here and those countries are native. And a lot of additional people come and they are ready, they are satisfied for having a job, for doing your work, for employment, for lower wages. Is it ended finally to unemployment of native people or not? Logically, it should be, but based on the evidence that we have about this issue, it is not true. 5, most children living in undocumented immigrant families were born in the United States and are therefore US citizens. Is it something about the law of immigration and law of citizenship in the United States. Is it true that everybody was born here in America? It is with no doubt, with no question, will be US citizen, or no? He or she may be the future US citizen, but it is not directly and undocumented. It is true. Yes. When you are born here, you will be US citizen. When a Gallup poll asks Americans if a legal immigrant most take jobs that Americans want, or if they mostly take low-paying jobs that Americans don't want, the majority of Americans indicated that they believe that most undocumented immigrants take low-paying jobs that Americans don't want. I think absolutely it is true. Immigrants are the major part of working class people in America. A lot of basic, during these days not, but for example, about the previous century, in the 20th century, yes, a lot of people who were immigrant to America, they were ready to do something with lower payment. And Americans say, yes, yes, we don't want to do those jobs because we are native and they are newcomers, they are immigrant, they can do the lower payment jobs. And 7, to become a naturalized US citizen, immigrant must pass a basic test on English and US civics. You want to be a citizen of America. What is the legal and formal and popular language here? At first, language is English. And you will be a citizen. You should know the law of citizenship in America. What are your rights as a citizen? What the government wants you to have a good behavior, have a good treatment in your society, and other legal and sometimes also formal, informal and conventional and public rules are not written, are not documented, but very simple basic test on English and US civics, it is true. And final question, final sentence is, foreign-born non-US citizens who marry a US citizen are automatically granted US citizenship. Everybody out of America who is not originally a US-born citizen, the US-born people, and after that married to a natural and is now married to someone who is basically a Native American. Is it true or not? Automatically, is it US citizen or not? We have taken past some documentary process for this, gaining the US citizenship. Logically, it is not true. Yes, it is not automatically. Welcome to the major parts. Demography. Demography is the study of population. Demography is the basic information of you, like your name, like your sex, gender, like your age, like your ethnicity, like your race. These are the basic questions about you. It is demography. Demo, in Latin word demo is mean people. Graphy is writing, gathering information, data collection about everything is graphy. But it is forming, presenting, it is graphy. And demo is people. Demography, it is showing the information about people. For example, when you say crazy, crazy is dominancy. When you say democracy, democracy, it is dominancy of people. With people, for people, by people, okay? So here we have demography, showing the information about demo. What's the meaning of demo in Latin word? It is people. Demography is a subfield of sociology that examines population size, composition, and distribution. size, composition, and distribution. Totally. These are the major parts and major targets of demography. But in the details, it is about age, education, family, family name, ethnicity, race. These are very, very specific and basic information about one person. And when we are talking about the society, we are talking about gathering individual information. And finally, what the size of population is, what the composition of the population is, and what are the distribution rates of different races, different ethnicity, different minority, different majority. Okay, you see here some graphics about the natural increase of birth and death, and it is called natural increase of population. For example, 2012, it is growth in the world's population. It is the meaning of natural increase. Birth minus death equals natural increase. Each year, each day, each time, each minute. The next title is fertility and the crude birth care. And after that, this mortality and the crude death rate. We have two parts, fertility and mortality. The crude birth rate, the crude death rate. Okay. Fertility is the actual level of childbearing for an individual or a population. Sometimes words are very simple in your mind. We have talked about it in previous sessions. Why? Because sometimes we have very simple words here. What is the necessity to describe, to give a definition about very simple words? Why? Because when you are talking about the science, I have talked about it before, but repeat again. Why? That's very important. As a scientific mind, it is very important that you should know we have two types of definition: conceptual definition, operational definition. And you can see here that it is operational definition. You know what is the meaning of fertility, but as an operation in studying, in scientific studying of society, you should know that what is the operational meaning of fertility, mortality, other concept. So we here define fertility as the actual level of childbearing for an individual or population. In the details, we have the crude birth rate. Is the number of live birth per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. What is the duration in a given year? What is the amount in a population? What is your sample? 1,000 people. The crude birth rate is the number of live birth, not death births, live birth. The crude birth rate is the number of live birth per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. With the same definition, we have mortality and crude death rate. We have fertility is the actual level of childbearing for an individual or a population. Mortality, incidence of death in a population. In the major part, we are not talking about the duration of time. But in the details, again, we have the crude death rate. Here, we have the crude death rate. Birth rate is the number of live birth. Here, the crude death rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. We have amount, we have concept, and we have time duration, temporal course. It is the amount, okay, number of 1,000 people per 1,000 people. 2, the concept, death, number of death, and 3, time duration, a given year, specific year. Migration is the movement of people from one geographical area to another geographical area for the purpose of changing residency. What are the key words in the sociological aspect of migration? At first, it is movement. Second, geography. Third, residency. So, ethnicity movement from one geographical area to another geographical area. Two, geographical area. Other types of migration is not this meaning of migration. And third, the purpose, the meaning of this movement is very important for offering an operational definition of migration. It is residency. You want to have a permanent residency, at least the permanent residency in the target country. International versus internal. You can, for example, from one country to another country, it is international migration. From one state to another state, from one city to another city. Immigration versus emigration is very important. And push versus pull factors. Sometimes you are not satisfied with the place you are living in that. It is push factor. You don't want to be at your country of origin. It is push factor. Go out, migrant to another country. But sometimes you don't have very serious problem with your country of origin, but you have some attractive, more chances to better destiny of your life in your target country. It is pull factors, attractiveness in the final country, in the target country. So when you don't want to be at your original country of origin, every country you can go out, you will go. Because it is push factor. You are pushing out by the government, by the poor economic situation, by the political unrest, by war and other pushing factors. Go out of the country of origin. No problem, not very seriously, no problem that which country you are entering, you are migrating. But no, for pull factor, it is a very specific country or some types of country. For example, developed country. You want to go from, for example, third world to the first world. It is not the problem at first. Not, for example, you are a genius. You are a very, very skilled worker. Yeah, we have a good visa, permanent visa here in America for genius people. If you can approve and confirm by the authorities in the US that in every aspect of life, you are genius, you are unique, you are expert, you are top level expert. Okay, welcome to America. It is pull factor, not push factor. Come here with a good opportunity to live better, good job, good money, good weather, security, safety, and also other countries like Canada, like Australia, like New Zealand, like some part of Europe. They are immigrant accepting countries. They love to have new job work, new expert, new specialized job work, not a skilled worker. Okay, so it is very important that what is the logic behind the immigration? Is it push factor, like war, like economy, like political unrest? Or no, it is pulling factor or pull factors. Okay, population composition, the sex ratio, and the population pyramid. Population composition, we are talking about the different aspects. You can look at the population for data collection, for data analysis, for giving result, and for having discussions about that population as from the point of view of sociology, as the future manager or leader, and sometimes as the future manager or leader of international, for example, business, international marketing, and other parts of human sciences also. So we are talking, we are giving you some specific with details component of every definition that we have in sociology about the population and urbanization. We have talked about the sociology, for example, about sociology of economy, sociology of family, sociology of politics, and now we are sociology of population. Population composition is the biological and social characteristic of a population. Demography. We talked about demography. Population composition is the biological and social characteristic of a population, including age, sex, race, marital status, education, occupation, income, and size of household. Composition, the biological aspect characteristics. For example, age, sex, race are biological aspect, biological characteristic. And marital status, education, occupation, income, and size of household is social characteristic. Gathering together is a unique concept, so-called population composition. The sex ratio is the number of males for every 100 females in a given population, not in a given time, not in a given country, in a given population. It is ratio. Something to something else, something for something else. The sex ratio, it is the amount of sex for another amount of sex. The number of males for every 100 females in a given population. Why 100 females? When we are talking about 100, we can talking about person after that. For example, if it is 89 male for every 100 female, it is 89 persons. Why? Biologically, males are weaker than females. The death at the first year and the death in the old ages in males are higher than females. Men will die sooner than women. Because of that, it is a pre-assumption that when you want to give a sex ratio, the major part are females and the minor parts, the smaller number, smaller amount is for men, for male. So sex ratio is the number of males for every 100 females in a given population. And the population pyramid is a graphic representation, it's a graphic of the distribution of a population by sex and age. It is very important. Why? We will see in the next presentation of PowerPoint, in the next PowerPoint. When you have the graphic representation of distribution, it gives you some good perspective about the future of that country, about the future of that nation. It's very important, very, very important. You can see here, for example, Mexico, Iran, United States, and France, you can see. For example, my country, Iran, as you see, a lot of people are between 20 years old and 39 years old. My country is one of the youngest country in the world. We have a very, very large amount of young people. Is it good for 2 days? Yes. Is it bad for after 20 years? Also yes. Why? Because after 20 years, for example, in 2014, we have a large amount of old people. The same people who are young now, after 20 years, they will be all old generation. So from now, we should think about 20 years later. Why? Old age people need some specific cares, some specific facilities. So this graphic representation show us that what are our perspective, what are our visions about the future of a population. It is called population pyramid. But population growth in global context. The Malthusian perspective says the power of population is infinitely greater than the power of the earth to produce subsistence for man. We are comparing two basic factors for human life: human being and earth, and population of human being, not only one single human being. The power of population is infinitely greater than the power of the earth to produce subsistence for man. It is Malthusian perspective. Again here, every aspect, every title of sociology we are talking about, you will have, absolutely you will have some parts about the Marxism, about the talking and ideas of Marx, because Marx is one of the first and also greatest thinkers, deep thinkers about the, not honestly the so-called sociology, it is economic parts, but historical aspect, historical interpretation about the economic behaviors of a society, and giving very deep, basic, crucial role of economy in society, which is at the view of Marx. So again, we have the Marxist perspective about population says, overpopulation, population more than we need, more than it is good. Overpopulation occurs because capitalists, I know, you know that Marxist is the opposition of capitalism. It's very, very different and oppositional position together. So everything Marx says, and Marxism also says about the society is, if you know the same approach in capitalism, the opposition of that approach will be, usually will be the Marxism. Sometimes a specific approach for Marxism, sometimes we have a specific approach in the Marxism, in the capitalism. But finally, if you want to know everything about Marxism, if you know everything, every equal to that issue in Marxism, in capitalism, you will find the opposition in the Marxism. The overpopulation occurs because capitalists desire to have a surplus of workers. Why? In order to suppress wages and force workers concerned about losing their livelihood to be more productive. We have a lot of extra workforces, job forces. We have a lot of good chances as the owners of production means. And after that, we can say, yes, we will give you some jobs, but with the lower wages. Why you should accept our idea, why you should our lower wages? Because we have a lot of choices. If you don't want, we have another choice, we have another choice, we have another choice. Then it is very important about losing the survival power, losing the livelihood. Because of that, workers, simple workers, simple workers should be more productive, more productive, more productive. And the aspect of Marx and Marxism as a worldview, as a point of view, as a perspective to the future of working class people, to the future of capitalism, to the future of money slavery, we have these topics about the to be productive. Why? Because you are fear of losing your job, your livelihood. Here, zero population growth. Zero population growth is the point at which no population increase occurs from 1 year to another year in a duration of 1 year. No increase, absolutely no increase. It is zero population growth. Also, you know that when we are talking about absolute in sociology and psychology or other parts of human sciences, also even in medicine, there's nothing absolute. There's no absolute fact. We are relative facts, but with a high rate of recurrency, with a high rate of statistical features about that fact that we are talking. For example, here we are talking about population growth. They say, yes, zero population growth is the point at which no population increase occurs from one year to another year. After that we talk about Marxism aspects, about the population and population growth and population distribution, demography. We are talking about transition, demographic transition. Is the process by which, at first it's a process. Some societies have moved from high birth and death rates to relatively low birth and death rates as a result of technological development. For example, better hygiene. It's very important, and you know that life expectancy has increased all around the world. Why? At first, because of, for example, some primary preventions like vaccination. A lot of people never have some serious and killer disease that we have, for example, 200 years ago. They don't give any disease about those killing, mass killing diseases. For example, rubella, we have vaccination. For example, cholera, we have vaccination just now. It is not very popular to see, for example, cholera in, honestly, any part of the world. Even in some developing countries or rich countries, we have some other serious problems. But about the previous problematic health issues, it is vaccination, very good to prevent, to primary prevent. Primary prevent is that you predict the mortality rate, and after that, based upon the technological development, you will have some devices, you will have some services to inhibit people to have some types of specific and mass killing diseases. It is demographic transition from higher birth and death rate to relatively lower birth and death rates. Okay. Urbanization in global perspective. We finished the discussion about population. We are going to urbanization. Precondition for city developments. What are the major prerequisites and preconditions to have good cities and effective citizenship in a specific area of city? A favorable physical environment. At first, when you want to see that which part of, for example, a country is good for establishing a city, for forming, for shaping a city, for example, after 10 years, at first a geographical environment, geographical characteristic, physical characteristic, physical environment. For example, if it is in the desert, it doesn't have any good physical environment, any good geographical characteristic for shaping, forming, and building a city. And after that, it is the advanced technology. Yes, it's a good land for building a city, but do you have any advanced technological devices for doing? Or no, it is very primary technologies. It's not good. And well-developed social organization. At first, it is geography. Second, facilities. Third, infrastructure. Infrastructure for a society is about the social organization. Two parts are related to the physical characteristic of a city, the land and the technology. But finally, we develop social organizations. For example, police department or healthcare systems, and other parts, that as their social organization, we need to build a city. So in this part, with these elements, we have three types of cities: elements of physical environment, element of advanced technology, and element of social organization. At first, it is pre-industrial cities. We are talking about all around the world, not even in the United States. Pre-industrial cities, very small cities, and very limited migration. Very, very limited. Few people come into that cities. Few people go out of that city. Also, sometimes push factors are very important factor than, for example, pull factors. Because it's not very advanced city, very industrial city, very modern city. Second type is industrial cities, in contrast with pre-industrial cities. Employment opportunities. They have a good chances to work, a lot of job chances, job opportunities, and increased size. It's a big city, not very big city, but it's a big city. And finally, this is post-industrial cities. We have a good sectors for giving services or information. It's very important. Now, it is the age of information. It's very important for cities to have good and advanced technologies about the transactional informational systems, systems for transaction, the information, for example, in financial part, in health part, in relatively news and other media part. It is very important for a post-industrial city, post-industrial living event in each level that you want to think. And rapid expansion. The life is very speedy, the life is very rapid. So again, as the previous parts, we have different aspects of sociology about the major parts of population and especially urbanization. At first, functionalist perspective. The functionalist perspective on urbanization and the growth of cities is called ecological model. Ecology is the science of studying environment. It is ecology related to the one specific part of the world. It is ecology. Specific characteristic of that part of geographical part, mental part, population part, government part, all aspects of one specific part of the world. It is ecology, the scientific studies of that part of the world from different aspects, especially from the aspect of geography, especially from the aspect of natural environment in that. But it's very important in ecology. It is the dominant aspect, it is the dominant characteristic that we are searching and we are looking for in ecological studies. Burgess' concentric zone model is a description of the process of urban growth that views the city as a series of circular areas or zones, each characterized by different type of land use that develop from a central core. We will show you the graph, the picture about this. It is called this concentric zone model by Burgess. This model demonstrates how economic and political forces play an important part in the location of groups and activities. Economy and policy, politics. Economy and political issues, political forces, political parties have a great role in the location of groups and activity. And it shows how a large urban area can have internal differentiation. It is a mathematical model, but it has a very good mathematical logic behind it. Very good mathematical logic. You can see here, I think, yeah. Zone 1, the central business district and cultural center. Zone 2, Houses formerly occupied by wealthy families are divided into rooms and rented to recent immigrant and poor persons. This zone also contains light manufacturing and marginal businesses, such as second-hand store or pawn shops and taverns. It is the Zone 2. Zone 1, the central business district and cultural center. It is Zone 1 of an urban city. Zone 2, houses formerly occupied by wealthy families. Zone 3, working class residents and shops and ethnic enclaves. Zone 4 comprises homes for affluent families, single family residences of white collar workers, and shopping centers. Finally, Zone 5, a ring of small cities and towns populated by persons who commute to the central city to work and by wealthy people living on estates. It's a very graphical approach for presenting the effects of political forces, political issues, power issues, economic issues on the location. At the core, Zone 1, central business district, major part of economy, major part of political problems and political issues, major parts. Center of money, the center of economy and financial issues. And the final part, Zone 5, is a ring, small cities and towns populated by persons who commute to the central cities to work and by wealthy people living on estates. These ecological models are involved in the centric zone theory. What are the processes that we can see in this model as concentric zone theory? What are the major processes? First, invasion. What is invasion? Invasion is the process by which a new category of people or type of land use arrives in an area previously occupied by another group or type of land use. Invasion is the process by which a new category of people or a type of land use arrives in an area previously occupied by another group or type of land use. Second, succession is the process by which a new category of people or type of land use gradually predominates in an area formerly dominated by another group or type of land use. These are different. Sometimes arrives, invasion, sometimes gradually predominate. Very, very slow, very, very in the time course, and they not arrive, they will dominate, but it is succession. Other things also, it is not a process, but it's a very important word in the concentric zone theory. It is gentrification. Gentrification is the process by which members of the middle and upper middle classes move into a central city area and renovate existing properties, especially old properties. From middle class or upper middle class, go to the central city area. And the word gentrification is very, very, very specific related to renovation. The other meaning of gentrification is renovation, especially of the houses, of the old properties. You can see here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, in graph 1A, concentric zone model, sector model, and multiple nuclei model. There are different models of the city for ecological part. But conflict perspective says that we have political economy models. Why? Because when we are talking about the power competition, about the power struggles between countries, between families, between governments. You are talking about the political issues, political forces. Every part of the world, every time you want to see some types of struggle, some types of fight, at the other parts, it's political forces. And sometimes it is diplomatic forces, sometimes it is war forces, but they are political forces. Both economic and political factors affect patterns of urban growth and decline, both of them. Why? Because it's about conflict. It's about a battle. It is about the struggle. It is about conflict. Economic and political factors. Urban space has both an exchange value and a use value. 2 and 3. Both structure and agency are important in understanding how urban development takes place. Both of them, structure and agency. Both structure and agency are important in understanding how urban development takes place. So we have a couple of words. At first, economic factors and political factors. Second, exchange value and use value. And third, structure and agency. You can see the value of urban space, exchange value, use value, example of uses, an example of who profits in exchange value, profits from buying, selling, and developing urban land, and use value, utility of urban land, space, and buildings for everyday personal and community life. The example of uses, an example of who profits, industrialists, developers, bankers, and tax collectors, an example of uses because it is use value. When you're talking about the exchange value, yes, what is your value? This is, for example, for industrialists. And affordable housing, open spaces, recreational areas, and public services. So you can see near the final parts of the presentation, you can see very modern and with the different social class, socioeconomic class as a gated community, how the gated community increase the division between public and private property in the United States. And finally, it's very popular vision in the great cities like Los Angeles, like San Diego. According to conflict theories, exploitation by the capitalist class impoverishes poor whites, low-income minority group members. Increasing rates of homelessness have made scenes such as this recurring slide in many cities. And what is the symbolic interactions perspective? It is Seymour's view of city life, and Werth's view, and Gang's view. Also, this is the name of the science. According to George Simmel, the German sociologist, urban life is a highly stimulating, and it shapes people's thoughts and actions. Very stimulating, very complicated situation for living urban life. Attributes such as punctuality and exactness are rewarded, but that friendliness and warmth in the interpersonal relations are viewed as personal weaknesses. So in this view, you may think that, wow, urbanization is not so good. It's not so human-based. Some values like punctuality and exactness are rewarded, and some values like friendliness and warmth, it should be your weakness point. But German sociology, George Simmel, think that it is true. The urban life is highly stimulating and shapes people's thought and action. What type of thought and action? For example, these actions and these characteristics we talk about. And the early Chicago school sociologist, Louis Wareham, suggested that urbanism is a way of life, it's a lifestyle. Urbanism refers to a distinctive social and psychological patterns of life typically found in a city. What type of psychological features, what type of mindsets you have as is someone resident in a city, as someone who have urban life or social aspects also. According to this scientist, the size, density, and heterogeneity of the urban population typically result in an elaborate division of labor and in spatial segregation of people by race, ethnicity, social class, religion, and or lifestyle. Also and or lifestyle. Especially, for example, great cities like Los Angeles, like San Francisco, like San Diego, we can see that all in addition to religion, in addition to race, in addition to ethnicity, in addition to educational level, in addition to social class, one of the greatest things that you can see a high segregation is about the lifestyle. And Herbert Gangs talk about urban villagers. This is very fantastic, very funny word. You are urban and you are villager. The sociologist Herbert Gang suggested that not everyone experiences the city in the same way. You have different experiences in a city. You have different interpretation. You have different attitude to urbanization, to live in a city. Many residents develop strong loyalty and a sense of community in central cities areas that outsiders may view negatively. It's very important. It is sometimes to be friendly with a part of a city or friendly with a specific type of lifestyle. This is very important. And cities and persons with a disability, it is the final discussion. Both urban and rural areas have a long way to go before many persons with disabilities will have the access to the things they need to become productive members of the community. It is very important in two aspects, education and employment opportunity, job. The government should provide some facilities for disabled people to have a good job, to have good education, as people that doesn't have any disability, normal people, normal physical people. Some persons with disability cannot navigate the streets and sidewalks of their communities, and some face obstacles getting into buildings that marginally at best meet the accessibility standards of the American with the Disabilities Act. Thus, many persons with a disability are unemployed. Also, the government, the society, the social committees, the social organizations have provided a lot of facilities for disabled people. Thanks. But it's not enough. Basically, it is not enough. Why? Because now, just at the time we are talking together and you are hearing me, just at the time, we have a lot of disabled people that only and only and only because of their disability have a poor access to education or have poor access to job education, work education, college education, and also finally, job opportunities, work opportunities. So yes, you see that for meeting the Americans with the Disabilities Acts, we should have more facilities, social constructs, and social infrastructures. Social, not merely the economic and financial. Social, it is some types of culture-based training in a society to give the disabled people the same chances for education, the same chances for job opportunity. A lot of managers, a lot of companies, very slightly have some segregation for disabled people. Sometimes, not always. They don't accept disabled people very easily with the same chance, for example, for someone who is not disabled. So many persons with this disability are unemployed. These festival occasions such as this street fair provide opportunity for urban villagers to mingle with others, enjoying entertainment and social interactions. Thanks for giving me your time, and I will talk with you in the final presentation for the final chapter. Bye bye.